Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach. This morning we read the words of Ecclesiastes, and among his most famous are that there is nothing new under the sun. If you wait long enough, that whatever was once news becomes history and then becomes news again. And so this morning I was awakened to news, and on the way here, news was shared with me about terrible events happening in Israel this morning. Today is observed in Israel as Shemini Atzeret and Simchat Torah together, holy days, joyous days, solemn days, and that solemnity and that joy were fractured by a horrific sneak attack. As terrorists from Hamas infiltrated Israel from the south, and in addition to rocket barrages, actually took over a number of towns and villages in the south of Israel. The official death counts, the last I heard, was in the 40s, but it is undoubtedly much, much higher. Hundreds of injuries as well. Also Israelis taken captives, bodies of civilians taken captive and dragged through the streets of Gaza. And so anyone who hears this news and is of a certain age or older might remember the experience of being in synagogue on Yom Kippur 50 years ago, which on the Jewish calendar was about a week ago, a little bit more, about 14 days ago. But for us, on the secular calendar, was 50 years ago today. So, Ein Chadash Tachat HaShemesh, what was once news becomes history. What was once history then again becomes news. And so sitting here in the United States, in our sanctuary, we reflect, we ponder, how do we feel, what do we do, how do we react, knowing what is going on 6,000 miles away, what is the beginning of what is undoubtedly a war, and there have been so many skirmishes across the border of Gaza over the years. They each get a name: grapes of wrath, bronze this, iron that. But they sort of fade into history. I think there is a sense, even from what I am hearing, that this is fundamentally different. But what is new is not new, because when you talk about the wars of Israel and the wars of Israel carried out on a holy day, this is not the first. And so I want to offer just a few thoughts and reflections to you as we are on the eve of the Yizkor service, about how we respond, how we react, what do we do, how do we process complicated feelings, emotions, reactions in the midst of this moment. So I want to offer one thought, which is that there will be a time for recrimination. So after the Yom Kippur War, there was a commission. People asked the question, how could you be so surprised? So I have been to the border of Gaza a number of times, and there are sophisticated systems, there are walls, there are cameras, there's AI, there's drones, there's all kinds of things. And so people will ask, where did those who protect Israel go wrong? But I remind us that the blame is ultimately not with them, it is with those who committed and who are committing these attacks and atrocities. And it is a reminder. I spoke on Yom Kippur about the dangers of overconfidence, and I believe what I said. You can check the video and tell me. I think I said that the Palestinians were a source of pain, but not an existential threat to Israel. And I actually still believe that. I still believe that we are stronger and they will not destroy us, but we cannot underestimate the amount of pain. And so as we are here, to be reminded that even though that it is those sources of danger that we think we have under control that are in some ways the most dangerous. I think my deepest reflection for you today is that in about 8 hours, we will be gathered back here for Simchat Torah. And we will be asked to sing and dance and drink. And there is drinking of sadness and there is drinking of joy, and this is going to be the latter kind. I've spent a lot of money on booze and I expect people to drink it. And I think it is a fair question to ask, how can we do that when we know that there are people mourning, when we know that there are people taken captive, where we know that there are people literally fighting for life and death, even as we drink and dance and sing? And I want to offer to you that that is in fact not only an option this evening, but in fact an imperative. So I don't know how many of you have had the opportunity to be in Israel on the day that is Shemini Atzeret in Simchat Torah. So I posted a meme earlier in the week of Barbenheimer, where Barbie is Simchat Torah and Oppenheimer is Shemini Atzeret. So Shemini Atzeret, we have solemn prayers for rain. I'm going to dust off my kittel for the last time. On Shemini Atzeret, we have the book of Kohelet, which is the grumpiest book of the Bible, the most somber book of the Bible. And then on Simchat Torah, we sing and we dance and we rejoice. On Shemini Atzeret, we recite Yizkor. And then on Simchat Torah, we read about the death of Moses. And so here's the thing. In Israel, those days are the same day. So on the same day, we recite Yizkor, we recite the prayer for rain, which, by the way, here in America, the prayer for rain, it's going to rain sooner or later. We're in Atlanta. But in Israel, the prayer for rain is actually a prayer of life and death for the people who live there. It is, with all due respect to desalination and the Jordan River, in Israel, the prayer for rain is a prayer of life and death. So they recite Yizkor, prayers of remembrance, Geshem, prayers of life and death, and then they sing and dance and drink. So that's the nature of life in Israel always. And there's also the nature of being Jewish. Kohelet, the book that we read today, the book of Ecclesiastes, you may recall chapter 3 was actually turned into a song. Dylan wrote it. It was sung by the Birds. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a time for hate, a time for love, a time for war, a time for peace, a time to be born, a time to die. And what I want to point out is that I don't know what Kohelet meant. I don't know if Kohelet knew what Kohelet meant. But I know that the Jewish experience is that those times are all overlapping. If you look at my calendar, I advise taking the proper antidepressant before you do so. It is a block of overlapping appointments and commitments and things. So we go from literally one moment talking to someone about a death in the family, to the next moment talking to someone about planning a bris, to the next moment contemplating growth, and the next moment looking and thinking about end and illness. That is the nature of life itself. And I think Kohelet understands that what Kohelet says, a time to be born, a time to die, a time for war, a time for peace, those are the same time. Those are not different seasons. It's like Atlanta weather. All the seasons happen at once, together. Tomorrow we are going to dance and sing. And by the way, we are dancing and singing just after we read, and I hate to spoil the book for you, we read that Moses died. How would Moses feel? We read his last word, his poem, his longing, his grief. He is not able to enter the land of Israel. And then we sing and we dance. We sing Torah Tzevalanu Moshe. Moses, you gave us the Torah. We're singing and dancing. Sorry about that whole not getting into the land of Israel thing. But in some ways, fundamentally, that is the nature of life. That is the nature of life in Israel. That is the nature of life as Jews. And so I cannot in any way underestimate, I dare not underimagine what our brothers, our sisters, our cousins are going through in Israel right now. The complexity of emotion, the fear, the anger, the desire for vengeance, all of the feelings that those who are in Israel and those who love Israel are feeling right now. Those feelings are real. Those feelings are deserved. And yet, our tradition tells us that this evening we are supposed to dance and sing, because ultimately the goal of the enemy attacking today was to prevent us from doing that. Right? I don't know if Hamas gets the Dressler's calendar, but they know what today is on the Jewish calendar. They know what it is that we are meant to be doing today, and the attack today was chosen to interrupt that. And so it is not only our opportunity, but our mission. The way that we defeat our enemies here is by not allowing them to carry out their goal of preventing us from doing what we do, from being who we are. Our sages chose with wisdom. They put the Yizkor service on Yom Kippur, a solemn day of the year. But all the other days of the year where they put Yizkor are days of celebration. They are Yom Tov. They are Shemini Atzeret, a day which is supposed to be entirely joy. They are Passover, when we are supposed to be celebrating the Exodus and the day of the splitting of the sea. It is Shavuot, celebrating that we received the Torah. Those are the days when the rabbis inject this moment of grief, of longing, of loss, of Yizkor. Because they understand that joy and grief cannot be separated. In just a few moments, we are going to recite the Yizkor service. And it's in the midst of a time that is supposed to be a time of joy, because at times of joy, it is impossible for us to forget the losses we felt. Whether they are losses of this week, losses of this year, or losses that are long in past. But remember, for us, what is history can still be news. And so my hope and my prayer for us, as we recite the Yizkor service, is that we have in mind those families in Israel who are reciting Yizkor anew, or will be reciting it for the first time in this coming year. That we remember those who are dear to us. We remember parents. We remember spouses. We remember loved ones. We remember, God forbid, children. We remember siblings. We remember friends. But Yizkor is ultimately not just about individual loss. It is about a communal experience of loss. It is about an experience of the loss of the martyrs of Israel. It is about the experience of knowing that throughout history, even our holiest times have been times of terror. What was history is again news. So I would urge us as we recite the Yizkor service, even as we keep our own losses close to heart, that we also have in our heart prayers that we are strengthened by those memories to be strong, to be resolute, to be firm, and even when called upon to be joyous. Because that is what Yizkor commands us to do on the holiest day, to have a day of to have the joyous day, to have a time of remembrance. That is what Shemini Atzeret and Simchat Torah command us to do. That at our moments of greatest grief and solemnity, we must also hold on to joy, because that is what makes our memories worthwhile. So I have no doubt that there will be more news. I have no doubt that as we leave Shabbat and then as we leave the holiday, we will learn more. And I fear that much of it will not be good. So perhaps our Yizkor this morning is even a bit, if you will, anticipatory knowing that there is loss and sadness yet to come. But we know that throughout our history, news has become history, and that this is a moment of history, but that this is also a moment of grief and sadness, but this must also be for us still a season of joy, because that here in this place in this time is what we hold in our hands. The way we respond to grief as Jews, the way we respond to oppression as Jews, the way we respond to death is continuing to live. And so I pray that our prayers for Yizkor today are a source of strength for us, or a source for those who need strength here and everywhere.